Hi folks, and welcome back to Math with Captain Rod. I'm making this video here to talk about rational exponents and radical expressions. So, alright, a couple things about exponents. Let's start with this right here. This is a very important one. If you have x to some power and that power is a negative number, the minus sign means, I like to think of it like this, like 1 over. So x to the minus p would equal 1 over x to the p for any value p. 1 over x to the minus p would mean 1 over x to the minus p, which should actually be x to the p. Some quick numerical examples of this. Oops. For example, let's say 2 to the minus third. That would be 1 over 2 to the third. Or if we had 1 over 2 to the minus third, right, that would equal 1 over 2 to the minus third. I'm sorry, 2 to the third there, not minus third. Oh, darn it. Sorry about that. There we go. Do not like working in Word, but let's see, what was I doing? 1 over 2 to the minus third would be 1 over 2 to the third, right, which is 2 to the third. Right, so basically, I like to think about it like this. If the quantity is upstairs in a fraction and it has a negative power, you put it downstairs. If the quantity is downstairs in a fraction and it has a negative power, you put it upstairs. And I'll describe what I mean by that as we go through the examples. All right. Another thing is fractional powers, like x to the maybe a over b, like maybe x to the 3/2 or 7/5 or something like that. So when you're looking at a power here in a power or in a exponent, the top number is the power and the bottom number is what root you are taking. So for example, 4 to the 3/2 means the square root of 4 to the third power. You could write it with exponents like so. So I'm going to go through and do a bunch of examples of this, right? Starting with this first one. So this means the square root of 25 to the first power. If I write it in radical form, it looks like that. And we could simplify. Square root of 25 is just 5. No problems there. Go ahead and do number 16 here. All right, so here this power has a minus sign and a fraction. So let's talk about the minus sign first. So I like to think of it like this. Let's write it 16 over 1 for a moment. And see, fractions have what I like to think of as like an upstairs and a downstairs. This minus sign means put this thing downstairs. So this is going to be 1 over 16 to the 1/2. Now, this 16 to the 1/2 means the square root of 16 to the first power. And the square root of 16 to the first power is 4. So this is equal to 1/4. All right, let's take a look at number 3 here. All right, so for starters, this minus 1/2 applies to the entire fraction. So we can apply it to both of them. We can kind of do this separately if we want. Let's do that. Let's write this 16 to the minus 1/2 over 49 to the minus 1/2. Now let's talk about the negative signs. So this negative sign, right, if I think of this like kind of an upstairs and a downstairs, this minus sign means this square root of 16 is downstairs, right? So 16 to the 1/2. This minus sign means this 49, square rooted is upstairs, 49 to the 1/2. If we write this now in radical notation, right, this means the square root of 49 to the first power over square root of 16 to the first power. Again, that was a 1 there, power of 1. And square root of 49 is 7. Square root of 16 is 4. Let me try to go back here real quick and, like that 1 right there. That was 49 to the first power there. It's a little better. All right, moving on. Again, I'm going to do mostly odds and leave some of the evens to exercises to whoever's watching this. All right, so we're going to take a look at this. There's a couple things we can do here. We could like put this downstairs because of the minus sign, or we could simplify it. Let's just simplify it. So when you have a number to a power times a number to a power, you add the powers. Just like if you were to take x, let's say squared times x to the third, that's equal to x to the fifth. And notice the 5 is coming from 2 plus 3. So here, this is going to equal x to the 2/5 minus 3/5, which is minus 1/5. Now, if I think of this like a fraction, like I put this over 1, and I think about this like kind of an upstairs and a downstairs, this minus sign basically means this whole thing goes downstairs. So this is going to be 1 over x to the 1/5. And if we write it in radical notation, this is the 5th root of x to the first power. And that thing is done. I'm going to go ahead and do number 6. I'm going to leave some of the evens and do a few of them as well. All right, let's talk about this. So this 6th power applies to both of these. And when you raise a power to a power, you multiply your exponents. So this is going to be x squared up top and and y to the negative 12th in the bottom. Now, the square is coming from 6 times 1/3, and the 12 is coming from 6 times negative 2. Now, this minus sign means basically these 12 y's go into the top of the fraction. So this is going to be x squared y to the 12th. And there's not really much more to do with that one. Okay, moving on. So this guy right here, we can just directly simplify this. X to the 3n over x to the n is x to the 2n. Here's where I'm getting that from in case we're not super familiar with these. Look at what happens if you take, say, x to the 7th over x to the 5th. Right, you end up with x squared. And notice that's equal to x to the 7 minus 2. I'm sorry, minus 5. Oh, doggone it. I know this thing's a little finicky. If you watch my physics videos, I strongly prefer my other program over working in Word, but Word is a little more convenient for these word sheets that I'm using. So let me get back to what that was there. Seven minus 5, right? That's to the x to the second power. All right, moving on. Number 9. So power to a power, you multiply exponents. So this is going to be a to the, when you take 6, or you can think of it like 6 over 1 times negative 2/3. That's negative 12 over 3, or negative 4. And the minus sign means 1 over, basically. So 1 over a to the 4th, and that's done. Let's see if there's any more on the following page. Nope. I think what I'll do is end that right there. We're at 8 minutes 32 seconds as well. So just some suggestions for the reader here. If you try this one, I would write this x to the 2/3 minus a minus 1/3. And I'm talking about powers there. Because when you have, like a top over bottom, you subtract your powers. Here, when you multiply these, you're going to be adding these two powers. And I guess I already did number 6. So I guess I'll just end that right there. I hope that this video helps with dealing with these exponents. Have a great day.